In this note, we're going to look at some more word problems, and in this case we will be using our word problem steps to help us solve. So in the first question, the cost C in dollars to print leaflets N is given by the formula C equals 35 plus 0.03N. What is the cost of printing 900 leaflets? So we could read through this again, or you can play it back. But again, let's look through and find some important information. Again, we talked about understanding what do the variables represent. So C represents cost, N represents leaflets. We have this formula, C equals 35 plus 0.35 plus 0.03N. And the whole last question, what is the cost of printing 900 leaflets? So I'll underline 900 leaflets because that is some important given information. I don't want it to get lost in the highlighting. And the rest of it is what is being asked. What is the cost of printing 900 leaflets? So that's what's being asked. So in order to solve this, let's start off with the equation. They do give us the equation, so it makes sense that we should be using it for something. So I have my equation. Now, let's see, is there anything I can use or do with it? Well, the question is asking for the cost, and which is C. I don't have N right now, but N is the number of leaflets, which I see in the second part is 900. So that means that 900 in this case is going to represent or equal my variable N. So I want to figure out when N is 900, what is the C? So I'm going to take my equation, and instead of N, I'm going to put 900. So my equation is now C equals 35 plus 0.03 times 900. So I get 35 plus 27, and then C equals 62. So therefore, it costs $62 for 900 leaflets. So again, we looked at the final part. We did answer the question, and it does make sense. Moving on to the next one. Tamira needs to rent a car. She considers the following price equations where C is the total cost in dollars and N is the number of days. So we have our 4 different companies and the equations associated with each one. Which company should she choose if she is planning to rent a car for at least 10 days? So again, let's go through the process of solving this. We read through it. Let's go back and highlight any information. C is total cost. N is the number of days. We have 4 different equations, which we can highlight if you want. And lastly, which company should she choose? So that's the question. And then the last part, 10 days, is important as well because that's what we're going to use in our equation. So which company should she choose? Usually when you're picking a company, you want to go with the cheapest or the lowest cost. So we need to find out which company has the lowest cost. Well, luckily we have the equation. We know C is the cost. We just need to know what our N is, similar to the last question. But in the second part, it talks about how she's looking for 10 days. So 10 would equal my N, or the number of days that you're renting. So what I need to do now is for each equation, I need to substitute N with 10 and solve for C, or the cost. So for rentaway, C equals 20, rentway. So C equals 20N plus 100. So C equals 20 times 10 plus 100. C equals 300. So rentaway costs 300. And we're going to go through and do the same thing for each company. So cheapies, C equals 25, N plus 50. C equals 25 times 10 plus 50. C equals 250 plus 50. C equals 300. Cars, cars, cars. C equals 50N. C equals 50 times 10. C equals 500. And lastly, drive away. C equals 15n plus 125. C equals 15 times 10 plus 125. C equals 150 plus 125. C equals 275. So if I go back and look at all the equations, right way is too expensive, cheapies is too expensive, cars is too expensive, but drive away is cheapest. So therefore, she should choose drive away. So we've gone through, we've done something, we've answered the question, and it makes sense because we've proven that it is the cheapest. So again, the key thing here, you want to make sure you pick which one is the cheapest, not just go through and solve the equations, because again, what is the question asking? It's not asking for the cost for each one, it's asking for which one should she choose. In our next question, Dan is experimenting with a toy rocket. He determines that he can model the rocket's height h in meters with respect to time t in seconds using the following equation. H equals 1/2 t squared. Which calculation correctly finds the value of h when t equals 10? So we've read through it. Let's go and highlight some important information. So some important things. The rocket height is h and time is t. We have our equation here. And which calculation correctly finds the value of h when t equals 10? So we're already told t equals 10 in our equation. We need to know which equation actually or accurately solves this. So there's a couple ways you could do it. You could use the equation h equals 1/2 t squared, and we know that t equals 10, so we can plug that in and solve. And we could figure out which answer works out. We could also look through each question or each answer and see if there are any mistakes. So I'm going to go through and solve with the equation, and then we'll go through and verify by seeing what operations are wrong. So h equals 1/2 t squared. I know t is 10, so h equals 1/2 times 10 squared. H equals 1/2 times 100, so h equals 50. So right off the bat, the only one with an answer of 50 is C. So C would be my answer. Let's look at the other ones and see where they went wrong so we could do it two ways. If I look at A, it starts off the same 1/2 times 10 squared, that's fine, but then they've gone 5 squared. So what they've done, so that 5 is wrong because what they've done is they've done the order of operations incorrectly. They've done 10 times half rather than squaring the 10 first, so A is wrong. For B, what they did here, they did get rid of the exponent first, however, they got rid of the exponent incorrectly. 10 squared is not 20 because it's not 10 times 2, it's 10 times 10. So B is wrong. C we already know is right, we're just eliminating the other options. And lastly, so the 100 is right, so they did square 100, but they also squared 1/2 because it's not the exponent, or the 1/2 and the 10 are not in brackets. That power of 2 does not apply to that exponent, so D is wrong as well. So again, you could have done it multiple ways. You could have used the equation to solve, or you could have looked at each answer and eliminated them. Our next question, the square and the triangle below have the same area. What is the value of n? So there's not too much here, but there is some important information. One, you could say, okay, knowing that it's a square, a triangle is important, and that they have the same area is also a key thing. We have our equations, a equals bh divided by 2, a equals s squared. We have our side lengths, and the question is asking, what is the value of n? So we need to know where's n. If we go back and we look at our diagrams, we can see that the n is located here at the bottom of the triangle. So just from reading that, it helps us go back and find, maybe we missed that n part, maybe we thought it was a unit or something. So then we go back and we found that's what the n is. So here it might be a little tricky on where to start, But an important thing is, if we go back to the beginning, it says the same area. So let's find the area. Right, we can find the area of our square. It gives us the formula of s squared, and we know one side is 12. So that means it's 12 squared, or the area is 144 centimeters squared for the square. For the triangle, we know that the triangle has the formula a equals base times height divided by 2. Now let's again plug in some information that we know. We know the base is 8n, we know the height is 18, and we know that it's divided by 2. Another thing that we also know is because it's the same area, this area also has to equal 144. Now what we have here is an equation. So what we can do is we can solve this equation. So if I want to get rid of the divide by 2 or fraction, I'm going to multiply by 2 on both sides. One side will cancel out, and you are left with 144 times 2. So you have 288 equals 8n times 18. I can simplify this side first, so I'm going to multiply the 8n times the 18. So I get 144, n equals 288. Now in order to get the n by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 144. On the one side it'll cancel out, and I'm left with n equals 2. So that means my answer is B. If you didn't know how to use the equation, or you didn't quite figure out that you needed to find the area and substitute it in, you could have stayed with the general formula of, I'll use a different color, general formula of A equals base times height divided by 2, which we knew for the triangle was A equals 8n times 18 divided by 2. If you didn't know how to rearrange or solve, you could have gone to the different answers, whether it's 1, 2, 8, or 16, plug those in for n, and solve to find which answer gave you the same area as the square. So again, it would have been a longer way, but it would have been less rearranging and easier calculations, perhaps. So again, there are different ways you can solve these. Lastly, Mia sells t-shirts from a booth at a market. She pays $30 to rent the booth. Each t-shirt costs her $1.50. She sells them for $7.50. Her goal is to make $200 after she pays for the booth and the t-shirts. What is the minimum number of t-shirts Maya must sell to reach her goal? So there's plenty of things here to highlight. So this one would be helpful to read again and definitely go through and highlight. So some key things. She pays $30 to rent the booth. Each t-shirt costs her $1.50. She sells them for $7.50. Her goal is to make $200 after she pays for the booth and the t-shirts. What is the minimum number of t-shirts she needs to sell? So again, a lot of information here. You could solve this in many different ways as well. You could come up with an equation to represent her cost related to the number of t-shirts she sells, or you could figure out how much it costs her to sell each t-shirt. In the end, there are different ways to do it, and there are multiple ways to get to the final answer. I'm going to go through one where we find an actual equation. So we know that her cost is going to equal how much she sells her t-shirts, and her number that she sells her t-shirts for, $7.50, n. So that's how much she would make, but she's also losing, or she has to take away from that, the $1.50 or the $1.50 per t-shirt, so minus $1.50 n, because she's going to lose $1.50 for every t-shirt, and minus 30, because she also has to pay for the booth. If I wanted to simplify this, I can collect like terms, so this becomes 6.5 n minus 30. Other ways you could have done it, you could have realized, okay, so it's 750 minus 150 equals 650 per shirt. Now what we want to do, we want to know how many t-shirts does she need to sell to make 200. So we want her C to equal 200. So in order for her cost or her income to be 200, we need to replace C with 200. So 200 equals 6.5n minus 30. Now what I'm doing is I'm solving for n. So I'm going to add 30 to both sides. One side will cancel out. I'm left with 230 equals 6.5n. Some of you may have gotten to this step already by understanding that she wants to make 200 plus $30 for the booth. So she needs 230 total. Now in our equation, all we have to do is divide by 6.5 because I want to get that n by itself. One side it'll cancel out, and on the other side, 230 divided by 6.5. 230 divided by 6.5 equals 35.38. So 35.38 equals n. Now, you can't sell a third of a t-shirt. So in this case, you want to round up. Even though based on the numbers, it doesn't work like that. You don't round up when the decimal is 0.3. However, in this case, because we're dealing with cost, we're dealing with t-shirts, we want to make sure she has $200. If you were to go back and plug 35 into the equation, you would find that she's just under. Because if she sells 35, that's less than that 35.38 that she needs. So you actually have to round up to 36 t-shirts. Again, you could do the same thing on the other side. If you realize, okay, she needs $230 to make her profit of 200, you can just take 230 divided by the 650 per shirt to figure out how many shirts you would need, which you end up getting the same thing. So therefore, she needs to sell a minimum of 36 shirts. So again, we've gone through, we've read the question, we've highlighted, we've underlined, we've done something, and we've answered the question. And so it does make sense. 36 t-shirts does make sense. We've kind of proven that with math. So we can say that we've completed the question. So again, in this note, just different examples of word problems using equations, and the idea of going through and following those word problem steps.